Mate, what is with all these NRL Fantasy podcasts? They all sound the fucking same. Welcome to the Echo Chamber.
Welcome to Episode 4 of the Echo Chamber, just another NRL Fantasy podcast. I'm one of your hosts this evening. My name's Bryce. I'm a bit of a newbie to the whole NRL Fantasy thing, even though I'm an old codger. With me tonight, we've got Jay-Z and Beluga, so welcome, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no, too easy. Tonight, we're going to be talking about halves. So, probably captain for most people, week in and week out, traditionally, for a long time, having the cheat code that is Nathan Cleary in our teams. So, we'll go through each club one at a time, talk about their prospects and where we are and what's happening. I'm going to start with the Broncos and talk about the shit show that is Broncos halves to start the year. Any love for Reynolds?
Adam Reynolds does have some value, like just raw value. Averaged 53 in 80 minutes last year. In 2023, averaged 54. In 2022, averaged 52. But with Hunt in the halves to start the year, his kick meters are probably going to tank. So he should lose a bunch of cash based on that. And then his body's also made of glass, which you probably don't want to be taking in round one. So he'll probably present himself as an option at some point during the year, probably when Mam comes back into the team. But even then, you're still betting on his body. So I'm passing him personally.
Yeah, I think as a Brisbane supporter, your dick would have to be pretty hard for Reynolds to pick him, even though, you know, you're one of them people. What do you reckon, Beluga? Any hope for Hunt at the 6?
Probably not, because although Reynolds' kick meters will go down, you don't expect them to go down all the way to, the levels that Hunt's half partners normally do. So Hunt kicked 500 kick meters a game last year. That would probably come down, and so will his average. So no love for Hunt.
Yeah, right. So I guess what we're looking for is Reynolds and Hunt to tank a fair bit of money, and then see what happens when Formula One driver that is Ezra Mam returns. Round 9. I think he's due back.
Sure.
Anything to add, Jay-Z?
No, I think he's pretty much nailed it there. Ben Hunt's probably too dominant of a playmaker to start with Adam Reynolds, and they're both really dominant playmakers, so they're going to just interfere with each other's fantasy scoring.
Yeah, not too easy. We'll move on to surprise packets last year. Realistically, the Bulldogs performed pretty well. Matty Burton's starting to fill out into the halfback we probably thought he could be, or the half. Spent a lot of time with Sexton and the other Muppet that they started the year with. I can't even remember what his name was. That's how bad he was.
Big Drew Hutchinson.
That's the one.
Gun.
Yeah.
Goat, mate. The goat.
Absolute melon, that bloke. Any love for Birdo? Priced at 50.
He's a good scorer. Like he'll have his moments. I don't know about starting with him. There's a lot of almost must-haves in the halves already. So I think these sort of middle of the road guys that are going to be guns but not quite elite guns are probably not worth looking at. Maybe a bit of upside in Toby Sexton, but I think again they're both guys that kick the ball a lot, so they're going to interfere with how well each other scores.
Yeah, I'm just looking at old Sexton. I just don't think he's going to get the kick meters with Burton's big boot to really kick on to that average that you want him. He's priced at 38. He's probably going to get that. He's not going to get the attacking stats with Burton being the dominant half there. And, while Burton can score really well, he can also go out and pump out a 25, 30 for you and just ruin your week. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, I could add to that a little bit. Look, I don't buy the narrative fully myself, but Matt Burton did average 57 with Sexton last year, whereas he averaged 48 with Hutchinson. So if you buy that improvement in the side with Sexton, increasing Burton's average, there's some value there, but I still think you're going to get more value with other options. And then as a top scorer, a 57 average isn't good enough to captain, so he just kind of finds himself in that weird, area where you don't really want him.
Yeah, I mean, with some of these other guys that we're about to talk about soon, I just don't see Burton being a good risk. If you love him, if he's your favourite player in the game and you want to start with him, then go fill your boots, but don't expect to be making any money on him. He's sort of at price, and I think that's what he'll average for the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to move on now to the Cowboys. And wow, so I'm a Cowboys fan, born and raised in the Townsville district, and all I can say is let's pray for Tom Duffy, eh? Let's all pray to the NRL gods that Cliff Dog seen. We'll see plenty of resis this year, and Tom Duffy comes in and plays really well next to Dearden and makes us 200k. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I think that's. I think Duffy has a lot of promise from what I've seen. And if he doesn't start the year, there will be a point in the year that he comes in. Like, I'm a Newcastle fan. Jake Clifford has never really held it together for long enough to really nail down a starting NRL spot. So whether Duffy starts the season or not, I think we can be pretty confident that at some point he's going to be a buy.
Yeah, old Cliff Dog. He's got a hernia. He's had to go get himself a bit of surgery to deal with that. So he's not even training at the moment. He's recovering from that operation. No preseason. Pretty sure that we'll probably see Duffy in the trials. We'll watch him do the eye test and we'll go from there, I reckon.
I mean, I don't even think you need the eye test. I mean, Dearden isn't a big kicker of the ball, right? So at 250k, like if he is in the team, you just get him. There's nothing to think about.
We'll talk about Drinkwater in the wing fullback one, but I could see Drinkwater picking up some kick meters this year, coming out of the backfield there. I think that's it for the Cowboys. There's no point talking about anybody else.
It's not really relevant.
He's got to go on one of them runs where he scores a million tries in a few weeks to be. He's got all attacking stats. He doesn't really have a base to talk of realistically. And everybody's telling me the Cowboys are going to finish in the bottom four this year. I mean, I love it. Last time they said that was 2023, and look what happened there. But yeah, we may struggle this year without an actual proper halfback. Cliff Dog did all right end of last year, but we'll see where we go.
I do think if the Cowboys struggle, I think their struggles will be defensively though. I think they should still score points, right? Which if they do find themselves in that like 12 to 14 spot, but they're still scoring points, I don't think you will have to worry about the halves and the spine members scoring well.
A couple of our injuries to outside backs, then we're playing Braden Burns again. So you never know, mate. Moving on to the old Dolphins, a bit of shock at the Dolphins. What's actually happening? What happened to old Sean O'Sullivan last year? He just got sent to the Shadow Realm. Didn't even play that much. Averaged 26.
Yeah, well, Katoa's a really, really good player. Like, I think he, in the next couple of years, is going to really establish himself as an elite halfback in the competition. And he's not even that bad from a fantasy perspective. So just getting into it, if you see Katoa and Nicarima, there probably is a bit of value there. Like, his kick meters with Nicarima, he's almost kicking for 500 plus meters every game. It's really impressive. The problem is, I think the Dolphins are going to get smashed every week, and there won't be a lot of attacking joy for them. But there are worse picks than Katoa. But again, I think the half spot is really congested at the moment with guys to buy.
Yeah, I think the old Dolphins, the old Uncle Wayne magic's going to wear off pretty quickly and tumble down the ladder. I got them pegged as wooden spoon. I threw a 50 on them earlier this week to get the spoon. So we'll see what happens with that. Katoa, 42 average last year, pretty much priced at that. Can he pick that up to a 47, 48? Possibly. I don't see him actually being a keeper though. I don't think Dolphins going to be good enough for that.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. You're really banking on just some year-to-year improvement for Katoa to pick him in your side. 10 points of value would be a 51 average. I don't think that happens, and he'd have to really improve as a player for it to happen.
Just one thing to watch out for with the Dolphins, though, is if they do start going absolutely pear-shaped and Sean O'Sullivan's been coming off the bench and he's under 300k, because he is still priced pretty high there at 450, could be a sneaky one midway through the season just to slot in and make yourself some money. So just keep your eye out on that one. We'll go to the Dragons. The Dragons have two halves to pick from this year. Flanagan and Ilias. What are our thoughts there, Beluga?
Look, I've heard some people chatting about Ilias. I don't see it at all. I think the Dragons are really going to struggle. I know everyone says that every year and they outperform it, but this year they don't have Hunt, and I think Hunt was just he was the Dragons. Look, Ilias averaged 38 at the Rabbitohs in 2023. He averaged 32 in 2022. I don't see how you're getting him to a 40 average, which he would need to have 10 points of value. And then Flanagan, we've seen what he does for a while now, and I just don't think he has any value at that price.
Now, one of these players is going to pick up a massive amount of kick meters, right? Ilias, they kind of did destroy, pricing him at 30 when his average last year was 24. So, thank you very much, Fail Hub. Go fuck yourself. But I don't know. I don't think it's risky. It's risky. We got
They
better
very
players
well
out
could
there.
split kick meters as well.
Ah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Both right-footed though, I think. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not interested in either.
At least Flanagan has some pedigree of being fantasy relevant. Ilias is just really bad. Like he's just not a good scorer. He needs bulk attacking stats, and in a side like St George where they're probably gonna be in the bottom half of the ladder, almost certainly. It's not going to happen for him. Maybe he's got a bit of value, but not enough to start with, I don't think.
Yeah, right. All right. I think that wraps it up for the Dragons. If they get an injury, holy shit, they own Dyer in the halves. We'll probably be seeing the beach sprinter himself playing at 5'8" or something in no time, I reckon. So we'll move on to the Parramatta Eels with Big Mitchy Moses and the $6 million man Brown. By the way, he's not going to the Knights, mate. There's no way that happens, but we'll let them talk about that. What do you reckon, Jay-Z?
I really like both of these guys. Not to start with, Moses probably would have been a buy if he kept the goal kicking. Like he'd be pretty close to like a 57 kind of average guy. I think Parramatta are going to have a bounce back here. Dylan Brown inevitably loses 100k at some point every season and then goes on a run. So again, wouldn't be starting with either of these guys, but if they drop price at some point, I think they'll be destined to be a cut price buy.
Yeah, I mean, Mitchy's pretty much locked on to play Origin this year as well, where he's always been an option around that Origin time to bring in because he didn't play. But yeah, what do you reckon, Beluga? You're hoping to see Hawkins in the Guernsey at all this year?
Look, what I will say is Dylan Brown had that partial ACL tear. NRL Physio has guys that do that at a 50% chance of doing their ACL completely for the rest of their career. So it is a very real possibility that Dylan Brown gets injured, does his ACL, which that could open up. Maybe Mitch Moses starts dominating the ball a bit more and his averages go up. But apart from that, there's no value here for either of them to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a new coach too, right? Mr. Rolls is into the coaching arena now. We'll actually have to see how the Eels handle that, how they play with that. The Storm setup coming up there to Parramatta, and anything could really happen. So, as always, something I've learned with fantasy is you got to be flexible. We can talk to a blue in the face, but we don't actually know how the halves are going to play at Parramatta this year. Just based on the fact we got Rylesy up there.
Yeah, and like always, also just watch out if Dylan Brown goes to halfback because his scores obviously explode there.
Yeah. I think his shoulders all good now, Moses. Right, that's all fixed. There's no more lingering issues there. So he played really well at the end of last year. Done really well in the postseason games. So I I think he's going to explode rugby league wise, but not show fantasy gains. Yeah, the Knights. So Jay Z, your team, the Knights. You're just going to like spin a bottle or something to pick your halves again this year, or what's the go with this, mate?
Yeah, well, apparently we're playing our backup fullback at 5'8" to start the year. So I think that the rumor is Tyson Gamble and Fletcher Sharp will be starting in the halves, or they've at least been training there. Like you said, there's no guarantee that any of these guys are going to last more than 3 games in a row. Hastings and Cogger are probably the only two of any interest, and Hastings' price is just not reasonable to start the year with. If Cogger gets the starting halfback role, there's some interest there. Like he's a guy that can go 40 plus comfortably. But the rest of them are probably an avoid, at least to start the year.
Yeah, I like Cogger as a player. I liked him when he was at the Panthers. There, he did a good job when he had to come in and play. I think he's got something about him, some good skill. I just don't know whether that's the type of player Mr. O'Brien wants. And money on again on Mr. O'Brien being the first coach sacked this year when it all goes pear shaped. So we'll see what happens there. What do you reckon, Blues?
Um, well, look, Fletcher Sharp's a fullback, like Jay Z said, so you'd think that his halves partner would get big kick meters. It depends how Ponga interacts with that though, because Ponga could steal 150 kick meters a game if he wants to. Um, so maybe there's value in Tyson Gamble. Like I'm looking at his 43 average last year when he was healthy and was playing over 70 minutes, only 314 kick meters. So if that bumps up to 450 because he becomes just like the complete dominant kicker, there's a speck of value. But yeah, I think the halves are too inconsistent. Like Gamble could be out of the team in round 5,
Yeah,
and so I wouldn't be taking that risk.
yeah. I just think we'll talk about Ponga obviously in the wing fullback. Potty. He started at halves last year. He does have a bit of a kicking game on him. I can see him getting some increased kick and play meters. Um, but yeah, I'm not touching any of the Knights halves whatsoever. I guess we move on to the Panthers. And is Cleary a lock in your team? 100% first person playing on the left like real people do.
On the left, I haven't seen what position I've got him in. I think the left is the default, right? If he's the first guy you pick,
Yeah,
which he has been every year for the past like 4 or 5 years in fantasy for me. He has the highest ceiling of any player in fantasy. He can regularly score 80 plus. I think you're pretty silly if you're starting without Nathan Cleary.
yeah. So who's getting stuck beside him? Right? Is it Talangi, Schneider, Cole? Who are they sticking in 6?
By the looks of the team lists that they've named for the trials, where they have, I think Cole and Schneider are playing in the halves, and no other first graders except for Papali'i is there. I think Talangi's probably going to be the guy that starts in the 6. Um, his fantasy stats aren't great. He's just not a big fantasy friendly type of guy. Like
And
I had him in my first draft, and then I looked a bit closer, and just there's not a lot to love.
he scored so many tries last year to inflate his everything. Like he went on, what a 4 or 5, 6 game scoring spree. I'm not interested in Blaze, whatsoever. What do you reckon, Blue? You hoping Cole gets it, being basement?
Uh, Look, if he does get it, I'd probably lock him into your team. I think Penrith are a good enough team to where it doesn't really matter how many kick meters he's getting. Doesn't really matter how much ball he's getting. I think he could just tackle his way to a 30 average. Uh, yeah, 250k half in the Penrith team. Get him if he starts.
Yeah, you got to lock it in at that point. Yeah, is there anything else to say about the Panthers? I don't think so. Lock in Cleary, lock in Cole if he starts, and avoid the trap that could be Blaze, I reckon. That's pretty much wraps that up. Um, Moving into the Rabbitohs. And I read a bit of an interesting article today um, where they were talking about Humphreys actually starting with Walker. What do you reckon about this, Beluga?
Um, Look, I they brought over Dodd for a reason, you'd think. So I'm not sure what to think about that. But if Humphries does start, I mean, Cody Walker isn't a big kicker. Jack Wyden in the centres, he might kick a little bit, but not much. Um, you'd assume Jamie Humphries does at least 200 kick meters a game and has some value. Although I would actually say if Humphries is starting, I would look a lot closer at Latrell Mitchell. I think that he might maintain his big kick meters if Humphries is the halfback.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to save that one for the wing fullback, but I sort of agree with that. If you got someone who doesn't have that big boot, you're going to have to find some meters somewhere, right?
I mean, and the
Yeah,
other option for the halves would be Lewis Dodd, right?
Yeah.
550k. We don't have any stats on him though, and I was watching some Lewis Dodd highlight videos, and all the comments were just English fans saying like, "No, this guy's been shit for the past 2 years." Like, he had a good game. Was it again? It was against Penrith in the World Club Challenge. I think he had a great game in like 2022, but since then he's just been shit apparently.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Mr. Dodd. I just know that traditionally, when halves come from the Super League, they struggle a little bit. Um, so I'm not super excited. He is priced fairly high as well. He's not exactly coming in at that 450k cheap mark that we do see most imports come into the game at. There is also Mr. Sullivan banging around at the South, coming from the old Tigers. So what do you reckon about his chances getting in the team?
low. I
Yeah,
don't think he's the best footballer. Um, Humphries was impressive, I'd say, in his debut for Manly. And I've heard the same sort of things that Beluga has about Dodd. I'm pretty sure he got dropped shortly after signing for South from St Helens at one point last year. So I don't know how good he actually is. And with South's halves, like we don't know how they're going to play.
yep.
Like Latrell kicked for 300 meters a game almost at points last season, and if that happens, then they're all traps. Even Humphrey at 350k might be a trap. So it's a bit of a landmine.
And we do know Uncle Wayne doesn't mind the old fullback putting a bit of boot to leather. You know, at the fullback position, he doesn't mind that. So yeah, I could definitely see Latrell eating into some kick meters there. Just got to throw this one out there, Mr. Schuster playing on the edge. What do you reckon about him for a half? I'm joking. We're just gonna move on. Raiders, Mr. Fogarty. All the guns hopefully started with Fogarty last year when we was supremely undervalued. This year he's pretty much priced at 50. I think that's what he'll average. What do you reckon there, Jay-Z?
Yeah, he's probably slightly undervalued because he had an injury impacted game and he didn't come back quite as strong as he started the season with. Watch for who his halves partner is going to be. Obviously, if it's Ethan Strange, he's going to have a lot of kick meters, but I just think he's at an awkward price, and you'd probably rather take like a Luai and a Munster over a Fogarty. So yeah, I'm staying away, but I can see the reason why you'd start with.
Yeah, I think if Sanders is there, we got a real big problem with starting with Fogarty. I think Sanders is actually a really, really good half, and probably somebody they should just leave in reserves to start the year at 7, just to keep building his skill in that in case Fogarty goes down. Because I do see Sanders as more of a 7 than the traditional running 5'8", and Strange defended like a champion in that 6 spot. I think starting with Strange there is probably the play, to be honest. Would he? Weeks is definitely going to start at fullback, right? There's no chance he comes back into the halves.
I think out of necessity, yeah. I mean, he did look alright at halfback, but I think they need to run him at fullback. They don't really have any other good options at that position.
Yeah, so once again, start with Fogarty if he's your world's favourite player that you've got a tattoo with him on your neck or something. But other than that, probably steer clear and there's better value elsewhere. The Roosters, the big Chad. What do we reckon about Chad Townsend this year? Price,
Well, he's actually weirdly undervalued.
he is.
I don't know. There's no reason for it. But he is priced at 33 when He averaged 36.4 last year, so that's something. If he does get goal kicking, you're teetering on a bye. Goal kicking, if he gets 3 goals a game, you're looking at nearly 9 points of value. But to be honest, he's Chad Townsend. I don't really want that guy on my team. He
Yeah,
just isn't great. I don't think.
he hurt me too many times last year at the Cowboys. Not in fantasy, never owned him in fantasy. I wouldn't do that. But like as a Cowboys fan, he hurt me a lot last year. He's probably going to line up beside Sandon Smith. AJZ, what do you reckon?
Yeah, Sandon seems like the guy the Roosters have sort of pinned their future on to an extent next to Sam Walker. They're pretty similar players. Sandon has scored quite well when he's gotten the starting 7 role in the past. So, I mean, and at his price, he's probably the most popular player in fantasy, I'd imagine. But I don't hate the Chad. I really don't. And if he does do the bulk of kicking and goal kicking, then yeah, like it's not the worst. Um, but yeah, it's a bit gross owning Chad Townsend.
It's a bit of an awkward price as well at 450. Like you spend a little bit more, you get a lot better player, and you spend a little bit less, and you get a cashy like a Sandon Smith or maybe a Jack Cole at the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be that things, right? Just watching these basement halves. You got the Jack Cole, you got your Tom Duffy, you got your Sandon Smith. Whichever ones are named round one, you're just plugging in, put them on your bench, and see how you go from there. I reckon that's probably the safest play with them. Watch the trials. We'll see how much kicking Townsend does in the last couple of trials. I don't even know if he's named in or if they're even playing a trial this week. But yeah, we'll just watch the trials and see how much the big Chad's doing, and we'll go from there. I reckon. Manly, oof, the neck. Can he get back to 60, Beluga?
I think we're just seeing his decline. He's getting a lot older. He actually didn't lose that many kick meters to Luke Brooks, which you'd think would be the reason for his decline in points, but it was more just so everywhere else across his scoring. Um, Daily Cherry Evans, look, he does seem like a consistent guy. Like I don't think Daily Cherry Evans is going to go down to a 40 average and absolutely fuck you. So if you if you really do like him for some reason, I'm not going to abuse you for having him in your team, but it doesn't really make sense to start with him. There's probably no value there.
Yeah, I'm not even contemplating any of the Manly halves. Um, I do think Cherry's coming towards the end of his career. He's had an amazing career. He's been an amazing player, and at sometimes he's been an amazing fantasy player. But I think it's the neck is on his way out. To be honest, this is the beginning of the end for him. Anything to add, JD?
No, there's nothing of really note at Manly. There's usually a point in the season where Cherry becomes an appealing buy, but it's almost never at the start of the year.
All right, Mr. Hines, Cone K magnet next to a Trindle. What do you reckon, boys? 825k, pretty expensive. My take on Mr. Hines is that you got Cleary at 60 grand more. You pay the little bit of premium and you get a much more consistent fantasy half.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't think that he's going to fall off as hard as some people are expecting him to. He has pretty much been an elite fantasy scorer for every year he's been in first grade. Almost been the best player in the game as well for a long period. Will he lose some kick meters to Trindle? Probably. Trindle really showed at the end of last year that he is probably the guy that should be in the 7 jumper. But that's not to say that Hines won't score a lot of points. Like Cronulla are going to belt sides, they're going to blow him off the park, and he's going to have a lot of front foot half play where he's sort of attacking the line and getting lots of touches and putting his back rowers and forwards over. I think, like you said, Cleary is the more appealing of the two, but I would like to experiment with a team that has both of them. I think that would be really
Ooh,
interesting.
that's some money. You're pumping some money into the halves there, especially when there's a couple we're going to talk about in a minute. What do you reckon, Beluga? You gonna?
Um, Look, I'll tell you what. I think the Hines drop off, if it does come, is going to be mostly kick meters. I think Hines is still going to be the dominant on ball playmaker though, and if you actually look at his 2024 season compared to 2023, so many stats just fell off. His try assists, his line break assists, his offloads, even his running meters, right? So I think there's actually a lot of upside in those stats. I would not start with him at all. I think it's too risky to start with him. But I do still think he is going to be there as like a 60 average keeper at some point in the year for you to pick up.
Yeah, I'm looking at Hines around the Origin period.
Yeah, look, I will say, I think he really sort of dropped off after Origin and that whole fiasco where he
Yeah,
got dropped after, a bloke got sent off in the first 7 minutes of the game, which is probably a little unfair on him. And I can imagine that that probably played into his drop off in form for Cronulla as well. So it's not unreasonable to think he could bounce back from that. But yeah, like you said, probably not a round one.
he got injured too, right? So he had that injury throughout the year where he was in and out of the team, wasn't quite 100% fit. I think there's upside to him, but I'm just not going to start. He's definitely one you can watch and make some money to bring in. I don't think there's anyone else to talk about in the Sharkies team. Trindle's not relevant. While you got Hines there, the moment Hines is injured though, Trindle, get him in your team.
Well, if you want to live on the edge, actually, Trindle. I mean, if you look at his halfback averages, they actually are pretty good. He actually averaged 50 at halfback last year, priced at 38. If he keeps goal kicking, that's what it comes down to. If he loses goal kicking, there's literally nothing there.
Yep.
But if he keeps it, maybe 10 points of value if the Sharks go really well as a team. But that's about it.
Yeah, it's another one to watch. I don't recommend you starting with Trindle personally. If he absolutely kills it, he's at a price you can probably move someone around to get in pretty quickly. 500k, there's plenty of edges and stuff that we're looking at around that mark. Some of these lads we're about to talk about very soon, if they go absolute shit and Trindle's killing it, it's pretty easy swap.
And
Yeah, so
only 1% of people own him. So if he goes well, it doesn't really matter. But if he goes bad and you're one of those 1% that own him, then
Yep.
you're gonna be pretty mad.
So let me throw a hypothetical at you guys. Do you think there's a chance at some point in the season they wake up and realize Will Kennedy is not good enough to play in the team and Nico Hines moves to fullback and they bring in either Atkinson or Puru in the halves?
Atkinson is a gun. I like him. I think he's got lots of potential, and he's a out and out six. It's how I'd start the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think
I
Cronulla's
think
got size.
Atkinson actually started out as a fullback when he was playing at the Storm. Look, yeah, I don't really care what they do to get Will Kennedy out of the side, but they need to get him out of the side. He's absolute dog shit. I've been calling him the worst fullback in the comp for like 2 years now. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh no, he's average." He's not. He's terrible. If Hines moves out of the halves, then Trindle maybe does he pick up more kick meters? Potentially.
Trindle becomes the buy, mate. If they move him back to fullback, Trindle is 100% a buy at that dominant 7. Yeah, it's what I'd do. Hines would be fullback, Trindle would be 7, Atkinson be 6, and minor premiers at the end of the year.
Maybe. We'll see.
Speaking of minor premiers, the actual minor premiers, not in Dreamland, is going to be the Storm. Their team is absolutely stacked head to toe. Best 17 going to be out there by far, in my opinion. And their halves are pretty amazing. Jerome Hughes, 825, same sort of price as Hines. What do you reckon?
Well, again, they've these dogs at FanHub, they've just overpriced him. He's priced at 61.8, even though he averaged 60.4. So even if you like Hughes a lot and you think he can play the exact same as he did last year, which I don't think he can, he's still overpriced. So Hughes is probably an end of the year keeper. Maybe even pick him up during Origin.
Yep.
But do not start with him. It's only down from his 60.4 average last year, I think.
So I agree completely. Jay-Z, have you locked Munster into your team? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, the guy's been a keeper pretty much every year since he debuted in first grade. He's just a really fantasy friendly type of player. Like he loves a tackle break, loves an offload. And he actually cuts into Hughes's points a bit too. Maybe not in the kick meter sense, but he does get a lot of footy, and he helps his back rower out as well a lot. Munster's just like such a great player. I think you just have to start with him at under 600k.
Yeah, so we spoke about edges yesterday, so Jay-Z reckons get Blore in as well because he's going to score a heap of tries. I agree. Munster was the second person added to my team this year. He's going to absolutely kill it. He's healthy. Last year he came out and said he was basically playing on one leg. So I know, Beluga, you're a avid Storm fan and you have been fluffing Munster all year.
Mate, look, I feel like there's always maybe one or two players every preseason where they are so obviously clear buys, but people just start experimenting and start seeing like, oh, can I actually not have him in my team? And I think that's happening to Munster. I've been seeing quite a few teams without him. Look, he averaged 52 in his 80-minute games last year, playing on one leg. All right, that's 8 points of value.
Yeah, he's going to kill it.
In 2022 and 2023, he averaged 60 and 56. So
Yeah,
I can't see how Munster goes wrong as a pick.
yeah. Got a bit of a soundboard for this take. Just play it for you.
I suppose you want a pat on the back for coming to the same conclusion as everybody else.
Right, so that's that one. We're going to move on to the Tigers because I think it's pretty clear. We're going to wait for Hughesy to drop some money. Once he drops some money, get him in around Origin. Very similar to a lot of the other premium keeper halves we've spoken about, I reckon. Start with Munster.
Mate, I also would just add the second Wishart enters the halves, get him.
Oh, yeah.
He proved last year that he is just a gun. And being that 14, you hope that he's playing 10, 15-minute games, absolutely tanks Bryce, and then...
You're hoping.
The bloke averaged 59 in games over 70 minutes last year, so...
Yeah, you're hoping because you're thinking old Grant's playing 80 minutes, but we'll see.
Well, we both know he is.
Yeah, we'll see.
Just on that, like Wishart's obviously going to be on the bench. Do you think there's a world where Melbourne are just so good and they're just flogging sides so hard that they rest one of the halves like 10 minutes early or something? That's a real possibility.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Grant will get a rest this week, and then Munster gets a rest next week, and then Hughesy gets a rest. You know, the moment a centre goes down or something, Wishart comes onto the field. He's so versatile. He can play anywhere. I just don't think his price is going to drop that much because he's going to play some serious football. But you're right. The moment he gets in the halves, lock him in.
I will say, I mean, Munster coming back from the groin, like he might have some 60 and 70-minute games, especially at the start of the year. But don't get pissed off by that because eventually Munster will be playing 80 minutes.
Oh yeah, hold him right through to Origin.
55.
Yeah, hold him. You might even be able to hold him through Origin if you can work your trades with the whole. We don't have to have 17 for our minor buys this year, so we can definitely.
And like past years, the Storm have 2 buys on the major buy rounds, so
yep,
that's always very helpful.
Yep, you're not really costing you anything there. We're going to move on to the Tigers, to our boy Jerome Luai. I'm just going to say this: I hate him. He is my most hated player in the NRL. He is an absolute flog wanker, and he was the third person I picked this year.
I completely agree. Look, the sell for Luai is, I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's pretty clear. Look, he averaged 57 at halfback last year, but if you actually look at that sample closer, you will see his tackle points were absolutely atrocious. The man did 10.8 tackles for 2.8 misses, which is only 5.2 tackle points. If you look at it in previous years, he's doing 15 tackles for 2 misses. He's doing 19 tackles for 3 misses. That could boost his average by 6-7 points, right? Galvin last year, just for reference on the Tigers halves, being the worst team, how much do they tackle? Galvin made 19.7 tackles last year. Caesar made 20.5. So if Luai gets back to that 19 tackle, low 3 tackle misses, that's 7.2 points roughly more added to his average. Now he will drop a bunch of attacking stats, right? But there's a bunch of room there for him to regress in attacking stats, but still have a bunch of value with the extra kick meters he gets at halfback, but also those tackle points going back up.
Yeah, and Buller doesn't kick the ball. He's just the running fullback. While I did see some kicking from Galvin last year, I wouldn't say that's his strength. He's definitely a ball runner first type of guy. So Luai be the main kicker. The only thing you got to worry about is Appy, I suppose, stealing some meters. What do you reckon,
Yeah, I mean,
Josie?
look, they bought Luai in as a $1.2 million man,
Yeah,
right? Galvin is great. Like, he is a gun rookie, but Luai, his job is to control this team. His job is to get this team out of the spoon, right? I think he's going to have his hands on the ball, 4 times a set, kicking 300 plus meters every week. It's going to be really good for scoring.
Jay Z, I've got a question for you. If Lockie goes down and you see a certain AD in a six, are you buying?
Probably depends on what his price point is. I don't like for all the points you guys just made about Luai. I don't think Dewey comes in and becomes a dominant half. In saying that, he's a very selfish six, and I think that sort of means he'll run a lot and maybe like score more tries than your typical six would. But I don't know that I'd rush him in unless he was particularly cheap or anything. I
Yeah.
don't know that he is the next guy up, right? He is, right? Or I'm not.
I would think Latu Fainu
Yeah.
actually gets that job.
Finding more of a seven though, right? He's more of a controlling player. I don't think his
Uh,
running games that like he's not a huge lad, is he?
I thought he was a 6 at Manly, but
Yeah,
not
I,
sure.
I don't know too much about the kid. I know there's big raps on him. They've
Look, he played
tied him down.
halfback 2 times last year, but in those games he kicked 88 meters and 35 meters, so
Yeah,
he
right.
doesn't seem like a big
Big
kick meter
kicker.
half.
Yeah. Right. Interesting. Tigers definitely going to go better than they have previous years. I've got them knocking on the door of the 8 personally, um, especially with our Mr. Luai's clause in his contract that says he can leave if they don't make the top 8. So it's fucking crazy to me.
$1.2 million and a clause that says you can leave it.
Yeah, it's just contracts mean shit nowadays, right? Want to touch real quick on Lockie Galvin, rookie year, 52 pretty much average throughout the year. He was standout for us. We all jumped on him. We made heaps of money, kept him in our team pretty much all year. Little bit of second year syndrome, fellas, you reckon?
I think a lot of second year syndrome. 1.5 misses a game for 20 tackles. That's insane. 1.7 offloads a game. That's insane. Um, yeah, I think he's going to take a big step back. I don't think he'll be anywhere near a keeper.
I don't think there's too much else in the Tigers to talk about. Moving on to the Tits, the big Titans, and a budget, an overflow version of Nico Hines in Mr. Campbell. What do you reckon, Jay Z?
Um, I am not super high on him. I think he's a good fantasy scorer. If he gets the role that I think that has been touted for him, like the number 7 with Brimson as his 6, every world where he is a very like elite fantasy scorer. But I mean, when's the last time he played more than like 15 games in a season? And like, are the Titans going to be that much better that he's that good of a pick for fantasy? At his price point, I think he's just too big of a risk, and you're pretty much praying for best case scenario with his point scoring.
Yeah, I think if you see Brimson beside him, I just don't know who's going to kick the ball. Like they do not have a kicking game at that point, so that could spell absolute disaster. And my $50 on the Dolphins might look like a terrible bet at that point. What do you reckon, Beluga?
Um, yeah, I'll be honest. I'll push back on that very hard. Look, so Brimson in his entire career has kicked over 200 meters in a game 1 time. Jaden Campbell last year kicked over 200 meters 4 times. So I think it's pretty clear who's going to be the dominant kicker there. Jaden Campbell was a career 5'8" average of 55.5. If you take his kick meters up to what Kieran Foran did when he wasn't playing without Tanner Boyd, because Tanner Boyd was the dominant kicker when that happened, Kieran Foran did 360 kick meters a game. If you take Jaden Campbell up to that, that puts him up to a 62.3 average, right? Now, Jaden Campbell in that 5'8" sample did have some stats that were too high. His try assists were probably a bit too high. His offloads were too high. His turnovers were too high. But I think the extra kick meters, like Luai with his tackle points, I think Jaden Campbell's kick meters gives him a lot of room to regress, but still have value. I personally got Jaden Campbell at a 58 average right now, and I think it's a very comfortable 58. Remember that they are adding back, an Australian prop in Tino. Um, I think the Titans are probably gonna make the 8 this year, personally. So
Wow,
I'm see right now.
that's been cool, mate. The fact that you just told me that potentially both starting halves for the Titans haven't kicked over 300 meters in a game, it scares the shit out of me, considering how much you have to kick in the modern NRL. You get down in your 20, you need the big boot. You know, you need that half that can kick 500-600 meters and keep you in the game. Think Mitch Moses, how much he saved the Eels last year with that insane kicking game of his. Um, I'm scared. Look, I won't be beating around the bush, mate.
I mean, I guess the thing I would raise is I think Jaden Campbell does have a an average kicking game for a 7. At times last year he was kicking 40-20s and he looked decently impressive. I think the reason he hasn't kicked over 300 is just role. I think he was playing as a 5'8", and it's that simple, personally.
Yeah, it's just yeah. I mean, they got the buy as well, right? So I feel like there's definitely a wait and see element with Campbell. If you want to start with him, that is a super risky pick, right? It has to be.
For me as well, I think it's his dual position, right? Like I would not be picking Campbell as a half, but we're talking about him because he does have that half position. I think the reason you pick him is the wing fullback. The scoring just does not seem good there with the picks we have right now, and so I think you take Campbell to kind of shore up your wing fullbacks. But if we get better options there, I would probably fade Campbell.
I mean, 80K you get Latrell, right? And if we just spoke about him keeping the kicking meters, you're probably trying to pay that for a premium as over Campbell. But I guess we'll leave that to the wing fullback podcast next week or the week after, whenever it is. What do you reckon? Any other love for the Titans there, JG?
No, not really. But maybe Carter Gordon, if he gets like a center spot and is available at center, he could be a decent option. But I will say with Jaden Campbell as well, just before we move on, that he came in to 5'8" in round 14 last year. That's like, midway point of the season where teams are battered by Origin and are generally not as strong as, your sort of round one teams are. The footy's a bit more open and free, and so there's a lot of opportunity for him to score a lot of points, right? And you said you sort of made some space for the regression in terms of attacking stats, but what happens if the Titans come out and they lose their first 5 games like they did last year? Is he going to keep playing halfback? Like, what's going to happen there? Like, I think you're kind of like I said before, you're kind of hoping for a best case scenario with Jaden Campbell when he's priced at 54. I think to expect a guy that hasn't even consistently played like a whole season of first grade to keep up that average over a whole year, I think is a bit optimistic.
Yeah, I agree with you, JG. I just think it's a risky play. Now, if your last name is Campbell and you're related and you love him, get him in there. Enjoy your game. This is a game at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm not going to be starting with Mr. Campbell. Sorry, Beluga. Disappoint you down that one, mate. You tried.
I mean, I'm happy to ride the Campbell train myself, get into a 63 average or something.
The other thing is what you said before, right? What is Campbell's ownership right now?
1.2%.
Like,
Yeah.
if that goes bad, you're up the shit creek, brother. So
Oh mate, I'll just swing with the trail. I'll just swing with the trail. Easy.
just remember that. Finally, we've got Mr. New Zealand Warriors teams, the Wars. Now, Metcalf's been named in the halves to start this trial, I believe, yeah, with CHT.
Metcalf and Murray Martin.
Ah, TMM. Okay. Boyd's got an injury, correct? Bit of a niggle.
Yeah, that's the male right now.
What do you reckon, JZ? Just whichever one gets the go is probably not a bad option.
Um, I'm not a big fan of Tana Boyd. Even if he starts at 7, I don't know that he'll last long in the role. I think the highest upside guy out of all of them is probably Metcalf, especially given what he's been saying in the preseason. He seems to be under the impression that he's going to be the dominant 7. Now, I don't think you're going to expect Sean Johnson type numbers in terms of kick meters, but he seems pretty confident that he can handle the big kick meter role and taking the goal kicking. I would
Yep.
be keeping an eye out for how he looks in the trials. Like if
Yep.
he's doing all of the kicking next to TMM, and that's the way they line up in round 1, then I think he probably is a goer. I think he definitely has a lot of value, and he is a really good footballer, which is I think a big plus for him is that he passes the eye test.
Yeah. So I owned Tanner a couple of years back at the Titans when he was relevant for that 8 week period at the start of the year. He did really well. He made me 150k. I feel like comes out and is that dominant kicker. He could probably do that. My worst nightmare will be seeing Tanner Boy and Luke Metcalf in the halves together. Because then you don't know what the fuck's going on, right, Beluga?
Yeah, the Warriors halves, I don't know what to think. I agree with Jay-Z saying if Metcalf is the dominant kicker in trials and he starts 7 round 1, I think you definitely lock him in. I mean, he averaged 38 last year with 48 kick meters, right? So if that goes up to 300, you're absolutely laughing. Tanner Boyd, though, I think Tanner Boyd's just too expensive to take that risk. I would rather spend an extra bit of money and get Munster or Luai. I think there's definitely potential for Tanner Boyd to go wrong, and for 500k, I don't want a player that can go wrong.
Boyd's done it before. That I will just say that. Even though he didn't do it amazingly, he was about the I think 380 mark when we started with him in, I believe it was 2023, when he was relevant there for a little bit at the start of the year. So that's 100k cheaper than what he is now. So you're right, there is that risk there. I like Metcalf more.
I will say to that point though is that he's got a bit of Alex Seyfarth about him, where if he has the role, yeah, he's great, fantastic. If he's the dominant playmaker, he can probably average close to 50. But he's just not that good of a footballer, and he's a very versatile sort of utility player. I think come round 5, he's going to be the number 14, and he's going to cover for Wade Egan for his inevitable head knocks, and he can cover Luke Metcalf when he does his knee. I just think he's sort of the perfect utility. And if he does start in the 7, I don't think it'll be for long. It could be a bit of like a Newcastle scenario where they've got 4 capable halves, right? They've all played first grade before. Harris DeVita maybe didn't have the best season last year, but he's shown in the past he can be a competent first grader. So it might be a bit of a revolving door of halves until they find the right combo, which is probably the only thing where I'd say Metcalf is a bit dicey. But yeah, I just don't see Tana Boyd holding the 7 role.
Yeah, no, that's pretty fair. I think they pinned their hopes on Metcalf. Metcalf was big raps at the Sharks when he was there, right? He was the future when he was there for that little bit before he moved on. So that's pretty much all our teams. I think we go with clear buys being Cleary, Munster, Luai, your 3 sort of super locked in players right now. And then you fill out your team with whatever 250 cheapie pops up. What do you reckon about that, Beluga?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. Like, although I like Jaden Campbell, he's absolutely not a must. So yeah, get Munster, Luai, Cleary, and your team is a relevant good team, and then obviously get the cheapies. If Sanders Smith, if Jack Cole's there, obviously get them. But it's those 3, Munster, Luai, Cleary, that you need.
Yeah, halves are pretty easy this year. I feel like Cleary not being a millie helps. Definitely got that option if you don't like Cleary, you're a Cleary hater and you can't stand the chin, then you go with Hines and you pray for the best. All right. Any last thoughts, Jay-Z?
No, I will say there is definitely some room to move with your halves. Like you can experiment a bit. If you really love Matt Burton, you can buy Matt Burton.
Yep.
If you really love Jamal Fogarty, you can buy Jamal Fogarty, and it's not going to be the end of the world.
Nah.
These guys are good scorers. They're fine. don't get too locked into musts and not musts.
Yeah.
Like let's start of last year, Hines and Cleary were both a million. So
Yeah.
there's every world where that happens again, right?
Yeah, 100%. But, if we're looking at built-in value, we've got the two in Munster and Luai, which, all the stats say that they're going to make us some money at the beginning of the year. And then it's probably about pivoting to whichever one of them halves are doing the best at the time it comes. Because, Munster's going to go away to Origin, and if you can't hold him through there, you're going to have to find someone else. So, yeah, Luai will probably go to Origin. We'll see what happens. All right. Thank you very much, Beluga, Jay-Z. Hope everyone enjoyed the listen and the shit we just talked. And we'll see you in episode 5. I think centers are always shit, except we got a juicy Jack Bird lining up in 13 people. All right. Good night.